Lovely. Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of the NBC Markets Morning Call. I'm Mark Gardner. This is Phil Deloccheri. Morning, Phil.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Good, mate. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Look, stocks finished slightly higher on Friday, but overall fairly mixed for the week, pulled down a little bit. As you can sort of see, we're sort of still down 1.7 in the NASDAQ, down around about 1% everywhere else. In the US, Hang Seng sort of had a relatively decent week. We had about an okay week in the Aussie compared to the rest of the world. As you can see in the middle, the software like Palantir and Oracle were up. Tesla was up. We had, what have we got here? Some of the financials up as well. Robinhood was up 14% on retail trading surge. Coin and as in Coinbase and MicroStrategy, which is now known as Strategy, were up on the back of Bitcoin being up quite a lot. Situational Awareness was, Citadel came out and said that they'd offloaded nearly all of the positions that they had, but materials, strangely enough, which is very rare, was the best sector in the US. We had, we'll probably discuss that a little bit later on in terms of the commodities and things, but ASX earnings on Friday, Phil, relatively positive.
Yeah.
Digicode down 9, Guzzi up 11. Ingham's
Burritos
down.
are back, yeah.
Burritos are back,
Yeah.
and
It's good for them. It's good. As I said last week, I'm glad they got out of the USA, cut it quickly.
Yeah,
and it's been a great result and a great move for them.
Yeah, so Ingham's is still obviously worries around bird flu and things like that. Lifestyle, I mean, who knows?
Well, yeah, TPG.
TPG, again, not really a main focus.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've seen Newmont was up and the gold stocks were up as well. PLS and those material stocks were up yet again. I think PLS reports this morning. We haven't seen anything as yet. But Goodman Group, very surprising. That data center thing is a little bit hit on Friday. Yeah. I think that's trading at seems to me like it's trading at a pretty decent discount, but maybe I'm not saying it, but ASX reporting today.
Ampol, you think will report well, the refiners and stuff.
Yeah.
Adairs, you think very a bit weak once again on consumer.
Aussie Broadband, maybe it follows TPG, but it's a pretty good quality company. I think Superloop did okay as well. And so there was something small that flagged the higher EPS and higher prices, but nothing really. I mean, it's not exactly the most exciting of businesses.
See Endeavour there, which
not on the list here, but its profit sinks on cautious consumer and obviously that changing demographic as well. Yeah. Which everyone's kind of dealing with. Bendigo Bank, we haven't seen anything out of those guys as yet this morning. Overall, we've got some pretty big Aussie figures this week, CPI in particular, RBA minutes tomorrow. And I think we've got Woodside tomorrow, Coles and Woolies side by side on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'd be thinking that they're probably, there's a lot of things that are going to affect them, I would imagine, same as Wesfarmers. Yeah. Be interesting to see what Xero does. I think WiseTech's on this day, on Wednesday the 26th. I don't know how that didn't manage to make the list, but that'd be very closely watched, I would imagine. Yeah. It does. We were discussing in the office the other day. Feels like anyone who cares about this scandal now has kind of been flushed out, right? That bounce back was possibly the more positive price action we've seen in a while.
I think they just basically go back to the core positives of the company. And, if it wasn't sort of, a bounce back from that, they're just sort of, focusing on what's,
Yeah, I think that what we call in the trading days, the week longs are sort of flushed out overall. Intuit might be interesting. They're a Xero competitor. And obviously the biggest earnings of the whole week, no matter where you're going to look, is going to be Nvidia. So I sort of put my wild card as Nvidia being a little bit, in the podcast on Friday, being a little bit of a chance of maybe disappointing. I think Jensen's been a little bit out of the press lately. I'd sort of get the feeling he might not be able to do all the heavy lifting because let's face it, Nvidia's saved this market how many times?
Yeah.
But if anyone's going to save the market, Jensen can save it.
George Jensen, we should call him. George Jensen.
But no, he's pretty good hype man. They did announce they're upping prices by 15% on Friday, so on their memory costs. So that's another very smart way to get the bad news out of the way first.
Yeah, factor it in.
They're all pretty skilled at that. And Salesforce will be a little bit interesting, I suppose, as well for the, in terms of how the SaaS apocalypse is going overall. But this was where we've been, Bitcoin, the big one, up 20% for the week. Our own Bitcoin sage, Citadel, gave a big positive. The wise man of crypto, despite the fact he's 27. He basically, that 9% of that jump was Friday night. So, but you had Ray Dalio coming out going, and look, don't get me wrong, Ray Dalio has been calling the end of the stock market and the end of the bond market for 15 years? But so just you probably got to take his thing as a bit of a grain of salt. But he warns that there's a debt crisis coming. Advocates 10 to 15% of portfolio in gold and a bit of Bitcoin. He reckons the non-government produced monies or non-fiat money will do relatively well. We tend to agree. We've been talking about inflating our way out of trouble, right? So. Because if they're not going to pay off the debt, the best way to do it's inflate it. So, which could mean that the stock, that's actually pretty positive for the stock market.
Especially probably tech stocks, can be rates low. There's money in. So,
well, they'll eventually get rates low. But obviously it's going to keep rates pretty high for the meantime. And then I guess those high rates will probably cause a short, sharp recession, and then they can get rates low. So
true.
But when they're printing,
it's a bit of a double-edged sword. You just sort of,
it's definitely something we've not seen before, like this tactic from central banks. But I think government debt, just broadly, everywhere in the world, has just gotten so big now. It's kind of their only option because austerity doesn't win elections. That's for sure. So
everyone likes the good life.
Everyone likes the good life, but lithium, uranium, we're up like 5 or 6%. Gold was up another 1%, but look, that turnaround in gold is something that we were pretty conscious of, pretty straight onto it. And it's like, well, if they are going to inflate their way out of debt and target that, target that bond curve, then at the end of the day, you've got to go into real assets basically. And this is where this resurgence in gold and silver, despite bond yields being higher, that's where it's sort of starting to come back. So. Look, it'll be pretty interesting to see how it all plays out. Look, if they keep going, gold and silver could be in for a pretty big run, maybe potentially back up. So we've got our webinar tomorrow, the AI Age. For those of you who haven't read the article on Livewire, it's actually one of the editor's picks on Livewire. I give myself a pat on the back there.
It was a great article.
But fantastic article.
Amazing.
It did take me a while to write, but But look, the webinar's on tomorrow, 12:30. But if you register, you can get it on demand after that. Obviously, we understand people are at work and stuff. But we're kind of giving that, that AI age, a bit of a comparison to, how the internet age and looking at those next winners, because that picks and shovels play only works for so long, and it can be quite fraught with danger. You even go back to railroads and industrial age, that picks and shovels is fantastic, but really the big winners are the next, that next phase that enables the technology to advance and be, the likes of Apple and the likes of Google, etc., that went up thousands of % over the preceding years. So, and our very own, we're so lucky to have Kai Chen, our internal expert on all this stuff. He makes my brain hurt, but we'll try to give. I'll try to provide the old man's translation, and we'll and he can do all the nitty gritty. But look, this week, as I said, pretty big in terms of inflation, in terms of some of the big ASX names, and obviously Nvidia. For those of you who watch Ausbiz, I'll be on the call today. Not a bad list, but I wouldn't say it's the most exciting list. But But yeah, so tune in for that at midday today for buy, hold, and sell. I think David Novak I'm on with today. He's a bit more of a technicals. But if you want to get onto the webinar tomorrow, 12:30, and you can also send in your Q&As. We're pretty happy to take them. And there will be a chat where you can push them out live. But we've had the Software Survivors was pretty interactive. We did the last probably 10 odd minutes was Kai answering questions off the cuff. Yep. I wouldn't be doing it if it was just me, but you know, when you got the man, you got the man there,
the man can do it. Man can do it.
The man can do it. So, but look, everyone, have a great Monday. Yep. Have a great day, and we will speak again tomorrow.
Yep. See you later. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.